everybody. Welcome to another episode of Theater Tuesday. And this is our 19th episode. I can't believe it. We've already been doing this that long. But we are here to talk about all the theater goings on of the month of August in 2023. And it was a pretty busy week. It was a pretty busy month for me. I am theater critic Rachel Wagner, and Maren is here.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good.
We missed you last month.
Yeah, I missed you guys too, but thank you for giving me the time with my family. I needed
Yeah,
that. So,
definitely. Definitely. I hope you have had a good summer, though.
yes. Yeah.
It's hard to believe that it's,
Yeah.
it's gone by so fast this whole
No,
summer.
my kids went back to school this last week, and it's just crazy to me that that's the time we are at now.
I
So,
know.
summer's gone.
Yeah, I know. I because I always have grand designs that I'm gonna go out and go swimming way more than I do.
Right,
And
right.
now it's over, and I've literally gone as far as open water. I've gone one time. It's so
Yeah.
sad.
All summer long, I kept telling myself I was going to make it up to Bear Lake,
Yeah.
and I didn't. I even went up to Logan once this summer to see a show, and I
Yeah.
didn't continue on to Bear
Yeah.
Lake. So that was
I
my sadness, is I didn't get to Bear Lake.
I did. That's the one I went. The one
Oh,
open water
nice.
swim I did. It was at Bear Lake. It was
Oh,
so crowded though. It
I
was.
bet. I bet it was, because I'm sure this year the water is up. The last time I went, the water was down low.
Uh-huh.
And because it was a couple years ago when drought was really bad. So I bet
Yeah.
this year it was probably beautiful.
It was. I mean, going by myself, and having my like square inch of towel space, like it was
Yeah.
so crowded, and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
We
but
went to Pine View. That's the one place I went to, was Pine View,
oh,
and it was same,
nice.
so crowded. My two daughters and I went, and so crowded, but beautiful. But
Yeah, I did get to go to Pickleville while I was
mm,
up there though, so that was
mm,
fun. My friend Camille is doing the audio,
hmm.
the sound. She usually works at Center Point
Right.
Legacy,
Okay. Hmm.
doing sound, and she's very, very skilled at it. She's very
Right.
good. And anyway, so they recruited her up there for Pickleville, and so I saw the Little Mermaid up
Mm,
there in July.
hmm.
And it's not my favorite adaptation of a Disney project, but
No.
they did a good
Yeah,
job
they do
with it.
fine with it. Yeah, but it's probably been since college that I've been to Pickleville,
Yeah.
but it's a fun theater up there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the parody side of it, that doesn't appeal to me at all. I'm not
Yeah,
interested
no,
in that, but
no,
see a show, that's fun.
sure,
But
sure.
but yeah, so I ended up this we're recording this on Saturday, so I still have a little bit of the month left, but up to this point I've seen 12 shows in
Wow,
August, which is pretty
wow.
crazy. I
Yeah,
don't
I've
even know
seen
how that
seven.
happened.
I saw
That's a
seven,
lot.
and as you mentioned last month, my mom did pass away this in July, and so I'm still kind of just jumping back into the swing of things. But seeing seven after having gone through all that, and kids going back into school and
Yeah.
everything, I still feel like, yeah, seven was a lot for me.
It
So
was a lot. That is a lot. That is a lot. Do you have a favorite of the seven?
I think that something rotten at Center
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah. 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 I love Something Rotten. I saw it
Me
as
too.
well, and it was so funny.
Mhm.
And
Did you see the
they
Monday, Wednesday, Friday cast, or the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday cast? Do you remember?
Monday,
Okay,
Wednesday,
so you saw
Friday.
Annie Farron as B.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
she is just such a skilled human
Really
being.
good. Yeah. She was
Yeah.
great. A great Shakespeare. I mean, I had just seen it in Midville, and
Mm,
their Shakespeare I might even like even better. But
mm,
they were both excellent productions.
yeah.
And I it was interesting because I took my dad, and I really thought that he would like it, and he didn't dislike it, because I
Hmm.
thought that he would really like it because he loves the Scarlet Pimpernel movie,
Mm,
and I
hmm.
feel like they have similar energy.
Sure, yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
But I think it's at some points it was a little too inside baseball for him. Like he
Right,
doesn't know like when they have a dream girls joke or when they have
right,
a,
right,
things like that. Like he wouldn't
right,
know like Illusions Cabaret or
right. And there
um
is so much of that in Something Rotten.
yeah, a lot of the jokes are very for your musical
Hmm.
theater,
Hmm.
hardcore fan. And
Yeah.
so he was really, 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 really tired because he was still getting over some jet lag from
Hmm.
traveling.
Hmm.
So, if I had thought that through, I might have picked a different date, but
Hmm.
he still did like it. I was thinking he was gonna love it.
Hmm.
It's always a tricky thing when you're recommending shows to
Shows to
friends,
people, right, for
you
sure.
know?
The first time I saw Something Rotten was when it first came out in New York, and I was on a trip in New York, and I just had a free slot to fill, and I was there in Times
Yeah.
Square and went to the half price line, and I didn't know much about it because it was still a new show, and I got a half price ticket
Mhm.
and went in blind,
That's
didn't know
always
what to expect.
that's
Yeah,
always a
so fun.
fun.
And I just, by the time they did the song A Musical, which I think is really one of the best songs ever written for
Yeah.
musical theater, I just, uh, they got a standing ovation
Yeah.
for it back
Yeah.
then when it was still so new and fresh. I stood with everyone. I just thought
Yeah.
this is, and my little musical theater heart just loves every reference. And you can
Yeah.
go through and find like 22 different
Yeah.
musicals all referenced in that number.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I thought the Nostradamus at Centerpoint was excellent.
yeah, same
One of
with
the
my
highlight.
husband too. My husband came with me to that one, and we had seen the Pioneer Theater Company production of it. And so my husband even said that he felt like the Nostradamus at Centerpoint was better than the Pioneer Theater Company.
Oh yeah.
Nostradamus. Like my husband just thought that the
Yeah.
Nostradamus did such a
Yeah.
great job. So yeah.
He was really, really funny. It's hard because the first time I saw it was at Pioneer Theater Company. So
Mhm,
it's always
mhm.
hard to compare your
Right,
first,
the first time, yeah. Yeah, I was like, I'm not sure that I think the Nostradamus was better than the Pioneer one, but my husband thought that. So,
Yeah.
everyone, we have our own opinions, so that's fine.
Right.
But yeah, I really loved it. I thought that that
Yeah.
was my favorite of the month for sure.
That's a very good choice. It was interesting because I saw Something Rotten, and then we went to Cedar City, and I saw the play that goes wrong at the
Mhm.
Shakespeare Festival, and I would say that those two are the strongest comedic
Mhm. Oh yeah,
plays slash musicals that have come out of Broadway in the last
oh
10 years.
for sure. And that
Yeah.
play that goes wrong is another one that I just ended up at seeing in New York on a whim, and
Uh-huh.
especially the New York cast of Play That Goes Wrong, it was one of the greatest experiences I ever had. I
Yeah.
have a whole funny story where the cast of Play That Goes Wrong comes out into the audience and talks with you in character before the show starts. And my friend
Right.
and I
Looking
had
for the
been,
Duran Duran.
yeah, and my friend and I had been in the balcony, and the main character who plays everything had come up in the balcony and was chatting with us, and apparently he liked our personalities enough. He came back and he took us down and brought us to the main floor,
Oh.
gave us tickets at the main floor. And then throughout the show we were laughing so hard. There was one point in the show he stopped and he looked right at me and he was like, I'll wait. And so
we
it just, yeah.
yeah, they did bring one person up from the crowd,
Mhm.
and they were there was some improving and ad-libbing going on. I do think it is a show. We were talking about this in our little theater group, UTBA group, that it is a show that it does get a little bit less funny the more times you see it. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think there's just sort of that shock of like I mean, with what happens with the floor,
Right.
the
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
like that. Like you can't beat that first time
Right.
that you see it. You're like, oh my gosh.
And wondering exactly how, like, with stuff
How
like
did they
that, the
do
set
it?
designers have to be on game
Yeah.
because you cannot have a set fall apart like that safely.
Oh yeah.
And I know when I first started seeing it at places like I saw it at Pioneer as well, I think. I think
I
that's
saw
where
it at Centerpoint was the first time
yeah.
I saw it.
Anyway, I I remember when I first started seeing it places that were not, because I saw it at Centerpoint too, that were not full professional, that I started worrying about how in the world are people who are not full professional going to handle this set design, because it is so hard and you have to be so nuanced with it, because you can't just
Yeah,
let things fall apart like that. You've got to be safe.
right.
Um, and so I agree, like it can get a little less funny if you know when the jokes are coming. It's almost like the movie Now You See Me. Like once you've seen it, the
Yeah,
magic is gone, and so it's
right.
not as, so like Now You See Me too, it's like it wasn't as good. You know the magic. But
Right.
but from what I've been told, and I didn't get to get down to Shakespeare this year, um which I'm kind of sad about. Their production was really top notch, and especially for people who've never seen the show,
Yeah.
it's high quality.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was really fun. And I couldn't believe that they were able to use the same stage for that as they do for the Emma. Because
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
like how do you dismantle
yeah, that's
and
a good
and
point.
reassemble such
Right,
completely radically different sets
right.
just in this within the same company? Like I don't know how they pulled that off.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
It was really really good, and it was just interesting to kind of compare the two.
Yeah, for sure, I bet.
I mean, I always will. All 99% of the time, I will prefer the musical over a straight play.
Me too.
But yeah, I would say that that Play That Goes Wrong, uh, Something Rotten, and the 39 Steps are probably those three are probably the funniest
Yeah,
play/musicals that I've seen in the last couple of years.
yeah. And I when I saw The Play That Goes Wrong in New York, it had taken over as my favorite play, and for the longest time, the play You Can't Take It With You had always been my very
Oh,
favorite play, since I had seen it in Shakespeare when I was like 12 or something, because my sister went to school down at SEU when I was in fifth or sixth grade, and so from then it was like I saw Shakespeare all the time because she worked for the festival and everything, and
yeah.
and so it just You Can't Take It With You was very endearing to me, and I still think it's a very endearing show. But it wasn't, and I never saw a play that I liked as much as You Can't Take It With You until I saw The Play That Goes Wrong.
Yeah, yeah, that's really, really good. Trying to think my favorite straight play. Oh, it's so hard to compare comedies and dramas.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. If it comes to a
yeah.
drama, the newest To Kill a Mockingbird, when I saw that on Broadway, was really moving
Oh,
to
you like
me.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's my favorite play? I mean, I technically have really only seen one play on Broadway. That was the Take Me Out, which
Mm-hmm.
would not be my favorite.
No,
I
mine either.
appreciated it,
I
but it wouldn't be my
appreciated it, but it wasn't
favorite.
my favorite. No. Um,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that's a good question. My favorite, I do really like the 39 Steps. That
Yeah,
is
that is a very funny show.
really
Yeah.
funny.
Especially when it's done right. In
Yeah.
high school, well, right when I graduated from high school, my first trip to New York, I got to see a production of A Doll's House that was really well done too.
Oh,
Uh,
really? They're doing
yeah,
that at OPA, right?
interesting.
They're about to start that, so that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I've seen some productions that I didn't like of A
Uh-huh.
Doll's House, so I'm not sure that I would say it's a favorite. But this production
Oh,
I saw in high school on on Broadway was just really good. And I've been told that the one that just closed with Jessica Chastain, a friend of mine saw it on Broadway and they said it was amazing too. So it would be interesting to know how Oprah does. But
Yeah, I think one of my favorite plays that I've seen at least recently was this was last year, seeing The Normal Heart.
oh, right.
That
Okay.
was very moving, and I thought like incredibly honest and
Mhm,
raw. It was
mhm,
not like your inspirational true story. Like this were very
mhm.
flawed protagonist, and I especially considering he was basically writing his own story.
Right,
I thought that was very impressive.
right. I got
Very,
to
very
see a
impressive.
really interesting show this month. It was called Hypersomnia, and it was a
Oh
new
yeah.
project by a new theater company called Rip Rap Theater Company, which was started by a bunch of new graduates, most of them from Weber State University, but I think a couple others were from some other places. But their story was cool. I happened to get to go on the night that they had a talk back, and so I got to sit and listen
Oh,
to
cool.
kind of how they started everything. But they got a grant. They kind of had all started talking together that wouldn't it be fun to start a new theater company based on weird and different theater is basically what they said. We want to do weird and different theater. And then they found this grant from the Lindquist family and they wrote for it and they got it. And so the tickets were free, which is cool. That was
Yeah.
part of the grant that they rented out the black box space at the Browning Center on at Weaver State. And so it's called the Eccles Theater, but it's not like the Eccles downtown Salt Lake. It's the Eccles
Right,
Browning
right.
Center. And it was a 60-minute play and it was about grief and loss. And so I was a little trepidatious going in because my mom
Yeah,
just
sure.
died.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was also exploring like dreams and how like our subconscious. And so, my day job is being a therapist and having studied
Uh-huh.
psychology all my life, I was like, well, this is really fascinating for me. Um, and so they had wanted it to be immersive and there were two writers, but then the whole team, there was a team of 8 people. They all helped with each other and they used a lot of puppetry and they used a lot of other things. And they had said they had been inspired a lot by like the Cirque du Soleil shows. And so
Uh-huh.
they had us kind of sitting almost in a circle and they had put like sheets of muslin over everything so it looked like you were in a tent.
Uh-huh.
And they did a lot of projections and the character who had passed away, there were only 2 actors in the show, but then there were a lot of people running the puppets and running the tech. But the character who had passed away, who came back in dreams a lot, um, liked old movies. And so they had in projections and in an old like 1980s TV that they had on stage, like projections of old Humphrey Bogart movies and whatever else. But the projections would go on the Muslim sheets. And so it felt like you were in the movie a little bit
Oh,
because it
that's
would
so
go on the
cool.
sheets. But then like one of the most like compelling elements that made you feel like you were part of the show from the beginning is as you walked in, there's a just a notepad and then a little basket and a sign that said, what would you say to someone who's passed on if you could? And you were able to just write something.
Oh
So I
my
wrote a little,
gosh. You must
my
have been
mom.
devastated.
Yes, it
Oh.
was. But then later in the show, it's like she goes and she tries to, the main character, she goes and she tries to talk to kind of like a soothsayer or something to try and talk to this person who's passed away because she's trying to get him a message. And he says for her to write it down. And so then you feel connected to her because you had just written your message. And
Yeah.
they said that they're probably never going to produce it again. So I don't feel bad about sharing the ending or whatever, but they never tell you what she wrote down. And afterwards, we're talking to the writers about it, and they said they had decided that because it's kind of like a private thing, just like how your message was private.
Yeah.
And so it
Oh, that
feel
sounds so
very,
cool.
yeah, you feel very connected to the character. But the company's whole idea is that they want to try and produce new and different experiences with theater. So you're not going to be going in and having your same traditional theater, which, you know, I love. I absolutely love going in and having my traditional show, but their whole purpose is to have something else, which was a very healing thing for me.
Yeah.
And
That's really cool.
yeah,
I'm
it was
definitely
really
gonna go.
neat.
What's it called? The
Riff
theater?
Raff Theater Company.
Riff Raff Theater. I'm definitely
Yeah.
gonna check them out. That sounds
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, they don't even have something listed yet as their next thing, but I'm definitely gonna watch for them and see what they do next, because it was
Yeah.
very, very moving and very healing.
That's really cool. Well, we both, speaking of theater companies taking risks, we both saw 9
Yes.
at the Heart Theater, which is a new theater company. They've done, I think, 2 shows. I think something like that. 1 or
3.
2.
I believe
Oh,
they've
3.
done
Okay.
3. Mhm.
3. I've seen they did the Wild Party last year, which I'd seen. So this is my second
This was
experience
my
with
first
them.
time seeing something from them. I've seen all their advertisements and wanted to see something, but harder
Yeah.
for me to get down to Salt Lake. So
Sure. And yeah, it was really interesting. This I think you said in your YouTube that this was the first time this has been done in Utah.
at least the first time we've reviewed it. It may have been done in Utah again, but we've never reviewed it. And
Yeah.
I have been reviewing with UTBA for 11 years. UTBA has been around for 13 years, and
Yeah.
we've never reviewed it.
That's
So
amazing. Yeah, and so it was very interesting to get to see something, you know, something different. And I was nervous about going into it because I was rooting for the company. I wanted to enjoy it. I mean, I'm always rooting for the company, but this is new and they were taking a big risk. But I don't love 8.5. It's one of those classics that I guess I admire more than I actually like,
right.
because the story in Guido is just such a loser. I'm like, why are all these women like
Right. Right. Right.
And I never watched the movie, the movie of
The
9,
9
because I
with
heard it wasn't
Antonio.
good, and
Yeah.
since I didn't like 8.5, like, why would I watch this movie?
Right.
Anyway, so going into it, and I thought that it was a really interesting experience. I think there are some real fun songs, some real and I thought the cast was uniformly excellent,
Right.
especially Louisa. I
Yes.
thought she was amazing.
I
Very
called her out in my review too, and I
yeah.
I wish my daughters were here. My daughter who came to the review with me, I did ask her how to pronounce her name, and now I have promptly forgotten. Louisa is a transplant here to Utah. She moved here from New York City, and she is native Chinese, and she had her name in Chinese, like both
Yeah.
in Pinyin is the way you write it with English letters, but then she also had it in the Chinese characters in the program. And my daughter, who's fluent in Chinese, pronounced it for me correctly. Um, and I tried to say it so that I could say it for the podcast.
I don't know
and
how she got those low
it.
notes. I mean,
But yes,
wow.
That's what, and not only that, that's what I had said in the review, is that in that song, My Husband Makes Movies, she's saying those low notes with such precision, but then a moment or two later, she's singing those high notes in some ways that you hear sopranos struggle with.
Yeah.
That she just, and then at the end, because what you were just saying, Guido is not a great person. And so you kind of sit in the show with this uncomfortable feeling of Guido. But in the end, there's a moment when she walks out that I wanted to applaud. And my daughter and I both, my daughter who's almost 17 came with me, and it is kind of a rough show. And I wouldn't have brought someone younger than that, but my daughter who's 17, I felt comfortable bringing her. But my daughter and I both wanted to applaud. Like, we were just like, yes, and then she sings that song, Be Alone, or like, and just such power and such precision that I can't wait to see this woman in everything.
Same.
And Annie Farron, who was B in Something Rotten, her and her husband, who are pretty big in the theater world up here, happened to be sitting behind me.
Good.
And so we were talking about it too, and they said the same thing. They were just like, oh my gosh, this woman, I'm so glad she's here in the Utah theater world, because she just blew me away.
I saw it and I was like, if somebody could I should cast her in Miss Saigon. Oh my
Mm.
gosh, I would die.
She was beautiful. She was
Uh,
just so talented. I want her in every role, like
yeah,
every role.
really true. I'm gonna say this wrong, but it's Yin Yang Yu,
You,
something like
yeah,
that. So sorry
Jin.
about
I think it would be Jin,
Yin.
is what my daughter said, and I
Yeah.
feel so bad. My children are not home today, or else I would make them come and tell me I'm saying it correctly,
But
because I do think it's important to
she
pronounce names
absolutely
correctly. So if for any reason she listens to this, I'm so sorry that we're pronouncing your name incorrectly, but you are a gem.
absolutely incredible, so talented. And so some other stuff that I saw, I reviewed a lot for UTBA. I'm going to be doing as much as possible since I lost my job.
I'm
I
sorry
need,
about
yeah,
that.
thanks. Well, it's winding down. The last month will actually be in October, so they're giving me, which is super nice. But anyway, I'm going to be doing more UTBA because obviously I can't like afford
Yeah.
it. Probably the last time that I go to Eccles for a while. I did see Beetlejuice, and I'm
I
curious
thought too.
to talk to you about this, because one of the things I struggle with as a critic, both as film and theater, is wanting to be as fair as possible, and
Right.
how my individual circumstances could impact my experience with a
Oh
film
yeah.
or a show.
Right.
And I don't think I've felt it quite so stark as, so I went and saw Beetlejuice on Broadway, and I really enjoyed it. I particularly was dazzled by the production quality
Right. Right.
of it. It was very annoying. There were two teenagers in the row ahead of me, and when I saw it on Broadway, that were singing along the entire
Ugh,
time,
that's the
which was
worst.
very annoying. But aside from that, which obviously is not their fault, the production's fault, I did enjoy it, and I had like such a dramatically different experience in
Mm-hmm.
this. I think it's just one of those shows I just have to be in the right mood for, because I was just
Right.
like very annoyed with it the entire time. I'm like, why are they just like, it just felt like somebody shouting in my ear for 3 hours, and it felt
Mm-hmm.
so long. And whenever like Beetlejuice is off stage, which is a lot actually, like
Right. Right.
I didn't realize the first time I saw it, like how much he's gone.
Right.
It's like, woo, it's rough.
Right.
And they pretty much all the other characters are just not interesting or compelling. I mean, I guess the girl is, she has some good moments, but I don't know, it was just like I was kind of slightly disturbed by it, because I like to think of myself as being like pretty objective and not so swayed by the way I'm feeling, or the way I'm the way, I don't know. I am, but I had like such a different experience from when I saw it on Broadway versus this tour, and I don't know if there was anything different
Mm-hmm.
about the productions,
Mm-hmm.
if they made any changes. And I was just like, oh my gosh, they just don't shut up.
That's it. It is interesting. So they did scale down a little bit of the tech. I had noticed that.
Yeah, especially during the afterlife
Yeah.
sequence, you could tell
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
lot less.
And I was kind of sad about that. So my background and my experience with Beetlejuice was, my daughter is just that age where she had loved it, and we had gone
Yeah,
and seen it in New York, and she had dressed up as Beetlejuice, and she had this fantastic cosplay. We had gotten a suit from DI, and she had painted it, and people had taken her picture,
fun.
and it was fantastic, and we loved it. We loved it on Broadway, and I was fine with the production here, but I had noticed the scaled down factor.
Mm. Maybe
The
that's it. Maybe that made like, because that was the main thing I loved about or enjoyed about it on Broadway, is like, wow, this is like, I've never seen production value so
Yeah.
high.
Yeah. The other thing that I had noticed, and I was talking to my husband about it, because that's the other thing with so we had tickets for my husband and I to go see Beetlejuice, because my husband adores Tim Burton films. They're his jam. And so we had tickets to go see it on Broadway for our anniversary. And we were gonna go see that in Hadestown and Little Shop of Horrors, and that sounds like a totally weird anniversary trip. That's just like that's who my husband is. And then the pandemic hit, and we had to cancel that whole trip,
No.
and it was very disappointing. And then Beetlejuice closed, and then when it reopened, it was just not a time for my husband to be able to go, and then it
Yeah.
closed again, and so my husband was never able to see Beetlejuice. And so then finally, when it toured here, my husband was very excited to see it. And then for me to get to the show and it be a little bit of a scaled down version, which happens all the time with touring companies. Hadestown has some changes in the tour versus what they can do on stage, because when you have a permanent location versus a tour, you can't guarantee each touring stage is the same. You have to
Right.
change things. I understand that from a tech point. But it was a little sad for me that things weren't quite as good. And it's hard for my husband because he gets to hear me tell these great stories of the way I saw it on Broadway,
Yeah.
and then it's not quite there. So that
Uh-huh.
part was really hard for me to be like, oh, it was cool, but it wasn't quite as cool.
Yeah.
I can understand, like, it's Beetlejuice. It's not Hadestown. It's not like, got all of this great quality, just like the movie doesn't have all of this great quality to it. It is what it is. Like, if you like that kind of thing, but again, you have
Yeah.
to be in the mood for it. It's kind of like
You really
my
do. You have
yeah,
to be in the mood for like
yeah,
something I don't know, like a little bit louder, a little bit
yeah,
more
yeah.
abrasive.
Yeah, no, I saw a lot of people walking out, and I just
Oh,
like,
really?
yeah, no, and I thought it was funny because I was like, "What did you think you were coming to see?" Like,
Yeah.
they were offended by some of the stuff in the first song, and I was like,
Oh,
"It's Beetlejuice."
that's
Like, did
silly.
you think you were coming to see something not inappropriate?
Yeah. I
It's
think
Beetlejuice.
it's one of those movies that you kind of think that you've seen, but you actually haven't watched it in a long time.
Right,
And so maybe they've forgotten like
right.
how the movie actually is. I mean,
Yeah,
it's very different as far as plot from the
mhm,
movie, the show,
right, right.
but as far as the humor, I mean,
Right. Yeah.
very
No, it's
similar.
very, very, very risque and
Yeah.
offensive. So,
Yeah.
but no, when you talk about, yeah, people forget, they just have some nostalgia for movies, and they
Yeah.
forget. My husband and I want to go see the here in the Davis County area. We have a cheap movie theater, and we're gonna go see the latest Indiana Jones because we just haven't had the time to go see it. And
Sure.
so we rewatched the old Indiana Jones to prepare, and my gosh, Temple of Doom is horrible.
It's so bad. I
I
can't stand
I
it.
I hadn't watched it and in so long, I don't even remember it, but we watched it the other night, and I was just
Ugh.
like, this is the worst movie.
Yeah, I really don't
And
like it either. I'm with
you
you.
forget, but
I'm
yeah.
with
So,
you.
but with Lydia, the character, and I think again it comes down to mood, because again, having just lost my mom,
Yeah, I
I
can see
think
that.
that I felt it a lot more,
Mm,
than the first time I saw it, because my daughter has always liked the character of Lydia, and I've just been like, uh,
right. I can
uh.
see that. Yeah, that
But
makes
then
sense.
this
Yeah.
time, I saw the show like 2 weeks after my mom died,
Yeah.
and so then I was like, okay, yeah,
Well,
I get trying to connect to your mom.
yeah. That's true. That makes total sense.
Hey, this is Jen Johans, host of the podcast Watch with Jen, which delivers a steady stream of great movie recommendations, thoughtful career deep dives, and first rate conversations with film critics, authors, actors, journalists, filmmakers, and more. You can find Watch with Jen wherever you get your podcasts, or hear us first at our Patreon at patreon.com/filmintuition.
So I'm curious, we were both together when we watched Romeo and Juliet at the Parker.
Mhm.
And it was interesting because I mean, for me, Romeo and Juliet, I'm like, like
The worst Shakespeare play.
it's
To me, it's the
probably no,
worst
I agree. I
Shakespeare
mean,
play.
there's a lot that I have never seen, like the lesser performed ones that I've
Right,
never seen. But as
right,
far as the main ones that get done a lot, it is my least favorite.
right.
And I mean, it's I'm always sort of more interested in what it has inspired than the
Mhm.
actual play
Yeah,
itself.
for sure, for sure.
And it was interesting because I had seen and reviewed for UTBA West Side Story the same weekend as when we saw Romeo and Juliet. So that was kind of fun to compare the two. But I was just fascinated because to me, I was just like, yeah, it was fine.
Right.
Like, I appreciate they tried to like put in a little more action, make it a little bit more like crowd pleasing, I thought. And but our friend Scott in
He
UTBA,
hated it. Yeah. Yeah.
pretty scathing review. So I was curious what you thought.
So, I had chosen to bring my 12, almost 13-year-old daughter along with me for that one. And I like to try and get my kids to learn and understand new things and whatever. But again, I think Romeo and Juliet is the worst of the worst, but she's going to have to read it. They have read it for 8th grade.
And it's so influential that,
right.
I mean, anytime there's a feud in any movie, it's
right.
a result of
right, exactly. And so that's why I had her come, because I knew that she's getting to be that age where she's gonna have to read it in school, and my older daughter's already seen it and studied it, and my older daughter's already doing other stuff, like her school, she's doing the hair and makeup for Much Ado About Nothing, so she's moved on to other Shakespeare and whatever. And so I'm like, okay, it's Amalia's turn. And Amalia turned to me after the balcony scene and said to me, dude, Romeo has abandonment issues. And I was just like, okay, great, you understand.
Especially in that retelling, the way that his dad was portrayed was very interesting.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I thought that they did well, and we had my daughter and I had a good conversation on the drive home, where I was talking about that. Yeah, the worst portrayal of Romeo and Juliet, in my opinion, is when we take away from that this is a romance, because it's not. The best thing we can take away from that is this is the bad things that come from feuding over stupid stuff. And that's what it was, that so many people made bad choices because two families could not put aside their differences.
Well, and that's what's so moving in West Side Story, when she says, because I hate now.
Exactly, because I had that hate. And that's what else. And that's why, like, because my husband and I were then talking about it later, because he's like, well, why do you hate Romeo and Juliet so much? And he's just very objective. He doesn't, it's not that he likes Romeo and Juliet, but he will say to me, why do you hate Romeo and Juliet but love West Side Story? And I said, well, simply because Maria lives. And it's one of those same things where, like, I don't, I don't like Music Man because of the story. I certainly don't like 9 because of how Guido is, but I liked that production of 9, but I don't like the story or whatever else. But with West Side Story, Maria lives.
Well, and Scott was the perfect person to review that show, because I can't, if I go see, not that I couldn't have done some kind of review, but when I go see Romeo and Juliet, I can't speak to like the original text and how, they changed things around or moved, they changed characters or how they treated the nurse. I have no idea. I mean, it has been, I haven't actually read Romeo and Juliet since I was probably 15. So I can't speak to any of that. But
and that's where you, as a critic, that's where you get to sit and think, am I capable to review this? And when I was early on in my reviewing career, I was a little more cautious on what I chose, but now I've gotten better at researching when I review and trying to be more critical. And like, I actually do pride myself in being able to say, I didn't necessarily like the storyline of 9, but I was still able to give it a positive review because someone else reviewed Mari Houston's show back in the 1980s when it came out, and they decided on the script. I just reviewed Hart's production, which was a good production, and I could objectively say they did a good job.
Or I just reviewed Anna Get Your Gun. The review just came out today in Payson, and I did have a couple paragraphs about some of the outdated elements. And I said in my review, I was like, obviously they can't change that here, but it's good to have a heads up so know.
Oh, absolutely.
And I talked about the 1999 versus the original production,
which they did do a lot of really good things.
And so I think it's, I mean, every critic brings something hopefully different to the table. So if I had been reviewing that Romeo and Juliet, my review would probably be focusing a lot more on things like the the sets and the performance and the chemistry and
Right.
things like that. I mean, as far as like Shakespeare, I think probably the most recent Shakespeare that I've actually read was probably I think I read Macbeth fairly recently, but I still couldn't like speak to it on an academic level.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Yeah.
tell you, they changed so and so scene,
right. And see, for me, like Macbeth, The Tempest, things like that, I find so much more compelling than Romeo and Juliet.
No question.
So I enjoyed it for what it was when we went and saw Romeo and Juliet, but I find it a tired show, and I wish they would do something else.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of cool, and if I were them, I would have worked with West Valley Performing Arts in tandem and just promoted each other's shows because they're so close.
Right.
And to have, they could even have like a combined package.
Yeah, be like, go see Romeo and Juliet and then go over and see West Side Story. Yeah, that would have been really cool.
That would have been smart, but
yeah. So the only other show I saw in the month of August was, and I feel like this one I can't be quite as objective because my sister directed it. Was Seussical at Hope Box.
Oh, I missed that. I still haven't seen it.
But and it's funny because I found out that it was one my husband hadn't seen, so he went with to go see it. But it's funny too because there is a lot of like love or hate towards Seussical.
My mom doesn't like it.
And I have a very specific opinion about it. I get why it didn't make it on Broadway. But I also think that it is a fantastic show for communities and high schools and especially young theaters for children to do, and there's several reasons why. One, I mean, it is fun and it does tell the fun Dr. Seuss stories. Like it combines several Dr. Seuss books into just a fun 2-act musical.
Yeah.
But the other reason is that there are like several leads, like 8 or 9 really big roles. And so a lot of times when you've got like a high school where everyone's like really hoping to be the big part and so many people are pushed off to the sidelines, if you can do a show like Seussical, you get so many people who can feel like they've got a starring part that you can really let different people shine in different ways.
Yeah.
But then also for creative, like costume design can be so fun. Set design can be so fun, and
it looked really good.
Yeah, it's so
the costumes there.
And even if you don't have a lot of money, like there's a sour kangaroo, and they just used like a pair of overalls and then added some fun to it, and it was really fun that you can do that. Yeah. So I feel like there are some shows that just need to know who they are.
Yeah.
And I feel like Seussical did that. Like after it left Broadway, it really figured out who it was. And there's a Seussical and then also a Seussical Junior. And the Seussical Junior makes its way in the junior high and the community youth theater. And it knows who it is. And that, I hate to sound like I'm bragging about my sister, but maybe I am a little. But she knows who she is because she's taught at junior high and high school for so long that she knows how to put on a production like Seussical and not make it too serious and not try and make it some kind of existential thing, even though there are a couple of songs that really do, because Dr. Seuss did too, teach good moral lessons, but do it in such a fun and joyful way that you go away from it just feeling like you read a fun Dr. Seuss book and you have fun and color and all kinds of stuff. And so it again was just another one of these things. While I did some of the deep stuff with hypersomnia and even in some way with Beetlejuice, the too much dead mom stuff that I was
need a break. Yeah.
I needed a break, and I got that with Seussical. And so it was just fun.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
Ones that I saw Beauty and the Beast at Terrace Plaza, and this was, I think, maybe the best production they've ever done that I've
That's what
seen.
you were telling me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And in particular, the Gaston that I saw was absolutely hilarious. I really enjoyed him. I told him after, I was like, you stole the show.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. And then I saw the Music Man at Sandy Arts Guild for UTBA. I reviewed Beauty and the Beast also for UTBA. Music Man's always, it was a really fun production. The Maren wasn't my favorite, but everything else basically worked for me. It was good. And then I saw Cinderella at the Empress, and this was a very special production. I mean, I love the Empress. I think it is such a lovely little theater.
They are a great little theater. I used to go out there a lot when I worked in Salt Lake. It was a little bit easier for me to go and see shows out there. And I've seen some really beautiful productions out there.
And it was interesting because they, this year they wanted to take more risk. I mean, they are a company that's done like Horse Line and some other
Heathers. They did Heathers once, and I was like, wow, you guys are great. You're willing to do stuff like that.
But they lost some of their funding this year, and so then they had to kind of change course and do some more safe projects. But I appreciate the fact that they could take something like Cinderella and bring some edge to it in the way it was staged, the way it was done. I thought the leads were really strong, and it was interesting too because I had just seen it at OPA. But this was a different script. I guess there's like 3 different scripts you can pick from.
There are, yeah,
with Cinderella. So I really enjoyed it. And I saw what was kind of cool. I saw Singing in the Rain at Sierra, and I've seen that. This is, I think, my 10th time seeing. I've seen the show many, many, many times. But what was cool is I had 2 friends visiting. One of my YouTuber friends was visiting with his cousin, and they hadn't been to a live theatrical since they were like kids. And so it was really cool to see their experience. And
that would be really wow. It's like hard for me to like imagine.
I know. Same. So that was, and it was a really good production. The only thing that I thought was very strange was the choreography that they gave to Cosmo. He was like on the ground a lot for Make Him Laugh. I'm like, why are you on the ground? Like, what? It was weird. It was like he wasn't able to do the flips, but that was part of the bit. I don't know.
One time I saw Singing in the Rain, I don't even remember which company did it, but there was one time that I gave Singing in the Rain a bad review, and it was because Make Him Laugh wasn't good enough. And it's just like how can you not, like, I didn't laugh. And that's when I was like, this is not a good show if you can't make me laugh in a song called Make Him Laugh.
Like, it wasn't the fault of the actor. It was just like, what's this choreography? Why are you on the ground? It was so weird. I almost thought at first, I was like, is he just not able to do the flips tonight? Like, is it just not working? I'm like, okay, but I don't know. It was weird. But and let's see. So then I saw, like I said, I saw Anna Get Your Gun, which was a lot of fun, and
it has some great music to it. It's another one of those ones where it's just like
unbelievable.
Balanced with whether or not good. And I know when I was messaging you, I told you I did get to see the Bernadette Peters version on Broadway, and cool. And like you said, the 1999 version, they did clean up some of the stuff from before, and then I reviewed it for UTBA when Hopebox did it, and I know the director at Hopebox went out of her way to
liked that with Hopebox.
Yeah, they did. And she went out of her way to make sure that she did cast well and make sure that she had done appropriate casting. And so
it's interesting because it's hardly ever done, but I don't think it's like, I was thinking about it. I'm like, it's not that much more problematic than Music Man, which is done all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like defending those aspects, but like really when you think of, they both have like cringeworthy Indian scenes. They both have like misogynistic stuff. I don't I don't.
Yeah,
I was
I
thinking
think
about it. I'm
that
like, I
there's-
don't really understand why this is seen as so much worse than Music Man
Yeah.
as far as
I think that
content.
there's a nostalgia factor more for Music Man than that one. And so that's why
Maybe.
people turn a blind eye to Music Man.
Maybe, yeah.
But yeah, no, because you know me and I feel
Yeah.
that Music Man's very cringeworthy. But I think that people are more like willing to, because Annie Get Your Gun, while it is very popular, it's not as popular as Music Man. And
Yeah.
so people have more nostalgia for Music Man, and so they're quicker to turn that blind eye.
It's true. I mean, the Sandy Arts Guild, the Music Man, they had that huge it's what do they call Moreland high school. It's right by the Southtown Expo Center. It's just down the street from it. It's huge high school auditorium, sold out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Every night. I
Man
mean,
is gigantic.
it's huge. So yeah, it's still, I mean, and obviously this recent revival sellout. Unbelievable. So you see why people keep doing Music Man.
No, yeah, they do Music Man, things like Music Man, Joseph, other things. They're they're money makers. You're gonna do that to make money for your company.
It's true. Well, anyway, I also saw Emma at Shakespeare Festival.
I've been told that it's fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, did you not like it?
Well, no, I didn't care for it. I think this musical, I think, is very uninspired. I love Paul Gordon. I absolutely love Daddy Long Legs. It's one of my all-time favorites. I think he's super talented, but there's not a single memorable song in the whole thing. And I had seen it before at Hale Center Orem. Okay. And I was like, eh. I mean, I love Me, My Jane Austen. So maybe I am a purist. I don't think so, but I was like, I'll give it another shot. And I do hold it too high because those tickets are expensive at Shakespeare. They're $70. So I'm holding it too high, high standard.
No, Shakespeare is equity, so you can have a standard for them.
I don't understand the casting. It was very weird to me because like a core component of Emma is that she is young and foolish. Emma and Harriet. And I think the actress was very talented. She has a good voice. She was pretty good at the comedic moments. She was way too old to be playing Emma. I mean, and it's so weird to me, like in a college town, why you wouldn't have Cedar, like Cedar is, why you would cast somebody that's clearly in their 30s. Like, I don't know. That was weird to me. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a very uninspired show. And I don't think I'll ever see it again. I gave it a second shot. Not for me.
I think that's good that you try at least a second time, and there are often shows that are just not for you. So that makes sense.
Yeah. But like I said, I absolutely love Daddy Long Legs. So Paul Gordon, he is very talented, but
so just wasn't your show. Yeah,
it's not for me. And then I saw Midsummer's Night Dream, and this was such a cool experience. So we knew that there was rain predicted, and it was like drizzling. And we were in sort of the covered part.
Yeah, the covered part of
theater.
The theater.
But about 2 acts in, it just like sheets torrential downpour. Like I've never seen it rain that hard in an outdoor production. I mean, I thought for sure they were going to cancel it,
but they shut it down. Yeah,
but I guess they just must be like, they must have waterproof equipment and must be prepared for it. I guess, I don't know.
That's interesting.
But the show must go on. They just powered through. That's cool. It ended up being like just super memorable. I mean, it's a fun Shakespeare to do. That's it was so memorable. Them just like powering through with just sheets. And I mean, I can't overestimate how hard it was raining. It was and particularly the head of the mechanics, I think is what they call it. He was absolutely hilarious, and he broke character a couple times. I was like, oh, you know, the rain, and because I do think that mechanics part of Midsummer's Night Dream, it feels like a different play.
Yeah, it feels like they're outside of the action a little.
Yeah, and so it kind of starts to feel like a long set, I think, once that gets started, once the end of the fairy plot is kind of, and they're just watching this play. But he was so good and so funny that it worked, and it was just a cool, memorable experience to have.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That they powered through that rain. Which is, so that is everything I saw, which is I've just been so busy this month.
Are you seeing anything more before August is done?
Yes, I'm going tomorrow to see the Duchess of Malfi. Yeah, it's by the Three Penny Opera Company, because Sid Vance, who I loved in Kinky Boots, she is in it, so it's a play of some kind. I don't really hardly know anything about it, but I'm going seeing that just because I think she's so good.
Right.
And then I am seeing Peebo Bryson in concert at the Sierra.
That's fun.
On Monday, so that will be really cool. And then on Thursday, I am seeing Jeremy Jordan at Sierra as well, because I have season tickets.
That's really fun.
Wait. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
I saw him in Little Shop off Broadway.
Oh, jealous.
He was so good. He's so good. But we saw him too. My daughter has a big crush on Jeremy Jordan. So we saw him in concert when he came to BYU. And he does a great concert. He does a great concert. You'll have a good time. He has a great set.
There is no better deal than getting the season pass. I mean, if you're close enough, obviously,
right? Yeah.
But it is such a great deal. I saw that the 3 shows that they had for the summer, and then they have outdoor movies every week. And I saw Sarah Evans, and now we'll see these 2 concerts this week, assuming I'm feeling well. But that is, it's a great deal.
My husband's father worked for BYU. He was a librarian there. He's retired now, but he'll always let me know if there's any good concerts, because he can get concerts at BYU tickets ahead of time. And so whenever anyone really good goes to BYU, I jump on the tickets there. So
the only hard part about the Sierra is deciding whether I want to do chair or blanket.
Right.
Because my back starts to hurt
yeah, for me it's always I want to do chair, but if I'm by myself. But if I'm bringing my kids, I'll do the blanket, because it's just easier for all of us to stretch out together.
It's the ultimate tough decision, but
it is, absolutely, I agree.
But yeah, so that's coming up this week,
awesome.
What I have, and I'm excited about those. And then I don't have, I mean, it's definitely going to taper off a little bit, because I just am not able to renew some of my season tickets, unfortunately. But I'll still try to do as many as I can. I'm going to see Clue on the 8th at Hale Center Theater Orem. Looking forward to that. And I'm really excited for Empress is doing Bright Star coming up in September.
I know you love Bright Star.
I love it so much.
I know for sure that September is always very slow, and then October picks up a lot. I know for sure we're going to Jekyll and Hyde at Centerpoint. My husband specifically said, can you request that one, because he loves the music, and we've only seen one production, and it was not a very good one. And I had told him this was not a very good one. And he's like, so let's see Centerpoints, and hopefully it will be a better one. I
want to see that.
I saw it on Broadway a couple of times, and when they had changed it, because there are a couple of different scripts, and then so I saw the old script and the new script on Broadway.
Did you see Linda Eder?
I did.
Oh
yeah, no, and I've actually seen Linda Eder in concert a couple of times. She's one of my favorites. She's one of my very favorite people.
I feel like she would have been a perfect person to bring in with the Tabernacle Choir.
Oh, she has come, but she's not for Christmas. She has come to their 24th of July concert.
Oh,
Yeah, and
yeah, she would be a great Christmas
she would be a
guest.
great Christmas concert, because I love her Christmas album so much.
Oh, me too.
But yeah,
She's one of my
I agree
favorites.
with you. And I've always thought, why, like, did you only bring her to the 24th concert? I did see her in Jekyll and Hyde, and she was amazing. She was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So anyway,
That's
so I
cool.
know that's the one show I have totally on the docket in September, but I believe I have others. I don't know if the first show in Pioneer season is September or October, but we have season tickets to Pioneer. So so I know that there are others. And then my daughter's season at her high school starts, and they have an improv show, and so getting into the high school stuff too. So
yeah. Well, let us know what you have been seeing. If you have been able to get out to any live performance, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And make sure you check out Rachel's Reviews Theater.com. And also I'll have my links to the reviews for UTBA and Maren's as well. And if people want to follow you on social media, how do they do that?
On Instagram and Facebook and stuff, I'm just Maren Swenson. On TikTok, I'm Doc Broadway.
Great. And so check that all out. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you are watching YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and check out the playlist with all of the Theater Tuesday reviews. And this week for Family Movie Night, I actually did my review of the She Loves Me pro shot. So some extra theater content this week. So check that out. And thanks so much, everybody. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.